Known as one of the most ruthless leaders to ever lead the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin was able to turn the nation into an authoritarian state that made him feared by the people.
Greetings, comrade. I am Stalin. You will work for me and only me. I will make sure of this.
From 1929 to 1953, Stalin's domestic policies made sure that the Soviets obeyed his every will and that all opposition was to be ruthlessly suppressed without mercy. Stalinism had impacted every aspect of life. Number 1. Arts and the media.
Greetings, my fellow Soviets. This year, in 1932, is the start of something new. From this day forward, all shall answer me. You shall glorify me and our socialist nation with your outstanding art. No abstract art is allowed, and only easily understandable work will be granted with acceptance by the Soviet government. If you do not follow these guarantees, you die.
Back in the day, writers could not write freely. They were limited to Stalin's guidelines and was forced to achieve social realism, which was the physical embodiment of Stalin's ideology.
You are the engineers of the human soul. Only you will have the impact to change the minds of your fellow comrades.
After the Soviet Union of Writers was formed in 1934, all writers were under pressure. They could not make art the way it was before. One of our examples was Osip Mandelstam, a leading literary figure. In 1924, he recited a mocking poem about Stalin in a gathering of writers. He said,
Around him, fawning half men for him to play with, as he prates and points a finger.
He died 4 years later in the Gulag, along with others that defied Stalin.
What did I do?
Literature wasn't the only media affected. Film, opera, ballet, 1936. 68 out of 150 films suspended. 1937. 10 out of 19 plays withdrawn. 1938. 10 theaters in Moscow and Leningrad closed. Directors were exiled, including Vsevolod Meyerhold, who wanted freedom of the arts. And then finally, music. As you can see, music was the art form that Stalin was most interested in. He claimed he was an expert. In the end, Dmitri Shostakovich, the Soviet Union's leading composer, got his acceptance. Number 2. Stalin's cult of personality.
You must understand that, though it may seem that the people love me because they fear me, rest assured that the opposite is the case. They love me like I am their father. I am the patriarch of all the Soviet republics. I am the Soviet Union. They are my loyal children. They will follow me even unto death, unless they die first.
Posters, flags, buildings, streets, they were all promoting him, named after him, dedicated to him. From the 1930s, his face was everywhere. Soviet newspapers continued advertising his brilliance and wisdom. Biographies would be published, and every achievement of the USSR was credited to Stalin. Children viewed him as their savior. Even a youth movement called the Komsomol began. It was a party consisting of 14 to 28-year-olds who were pledged to Stalin and his party. By 1940, they had reached 10 million people. Number 3. Religion.
You will worship me with all your glory, because I am your God. If there were such gods, they would have brought you justice. But it was I, the reason why you are still alive. Where is your God now? Right here.
Stalin believed that religious faith was irrelevant in a communist society. In 1928, a campaign to close churches began. When disobeying Stalin's orders, the priests were arrested and exiled, along with religious protesters who had to become kulaks.
Your death belongs to my hands. I kill peasants like you for breakfast.
Stalin saw religion as a potential source of opposition, but he also saw that it could be utilized to his will. On June 1941, the Great Fatherland War began. Stalin decided to reopen the churches so he could use religion to rally the people for the war. Number 4. Education.
As you can see from our fabulous industrialization, I have made sure that all Soviets are properly educated. Soon, social realism shall be implanted in our children's minds, like bulletin brain in traitors.
Children had to go to school for only 10 years, from age 5 to 15. The core curriculum in the USSR even included the Marxist theory. After that, it was non-compulsory. But unlike the last 10 years, fees had to be charged for those who wanted to learn until they were 18. Also, there was a development of the elite. It was a regulation that involved a selection process based on ability. They wanted to recruit young people who were ready to join the workforce. Number 5. Women.
Women, they have nothing. Machines designed to produce brave Russians for the USSR. Plus, by taking away women's rights, we can better protect them from the enemies of Mother Russia. Sound good, huh? Or would you like bullet to baby next?
Along with the youth, the status of women was also affected by Stalinism. During the revolution, women had also risen up, and Stalin did not agree with these sexual freedoms. By the 1930s, the USSR had the highest divorce rate, and many children were orphaned. These orphans usually ended up as violent thieves and formed gangs. Therefore, Stalin decided to re-establish family structures with the new decree he made in June 1936.
Abortion rights are restricted. Unregistered marriages are forbidden. No homosexuals in my nation. This is not union of homos. This is union of Soviet republics. But seriously, no homosexuality.
The nation had a falling birth rate, and they were in the middle of a war. So mothers with less children would pay heavier taxes.
Mothers of the USSR made babies, lots of babies. I could care less of how you make them. All shall contribute to the nation.
When the USSR ran out of workers, Stalin forced women to join. So not only were they steered back to old prejudices like being housewives and child raisers, but they also had to give themselves to the workforce. Over 500,000 women fought in the army, and by 1945, half the Soviet workers were female. Without women, the USSR wouldn't have survived. And number 6, national minorities.
You minorities will have no rights. Is it going to be a threat to my central authority? You think the Germans come to save you? Yeah, not on my watch. I think you will have good time in my little theme parks. I call them gulags, free of charge.
In 1940, Stalin took over the Baltic states, Bukovina, and Bessarabia, having 2 million of them deported, with the majority dead.
We live in the most distant and coldest regions of the USSR. Siberia, very cold place. Right over here. Good place for my gulag theme parks.
In 1941, he ordered the deportation of Ukrainians, Kalmyks, Crimean Tatars, Chechens,
and the Volga Germans. Clear, horrible creatures. It's like German, but not really German.
Because of the ongoing war, he suspected that some minorities would go over to Germany's side and aid them.
Hitler is crazy. Don't trust him. Trust me.
As you can see, Stalinism had a big impact towards the Soviet society. Arts, media, religion, education, women, and national minorities all had a slice of Stalinism in their own way. Everyone was slowly being brainwashed into seeing Stalin as their savior, when in fact they had all fallen into victims of Stalinism.
And now, my comrades, we will end this interview with, not sending you to gulag theme park, but sing the national anthem of the Soviet Union.